To some, it could be a product, and to some, it could be a service. Let me tell you something. I'm gonna say a shocking statement. And when you hear this statement, you will be shocked. Right? Are you ready for it? Are you ready? One, two, three, go. Some businesses, some businesses will start from a place of depression. You see, maybe there's somebody who's watching this video, and maybe God has been telling you that start this business, right? Build this product, build this service, but you are not motivated to do it. And God knew that, you know what, when a situation came, He then got a chance to capitalize so that He can motivate you to start your business. There are companies, you and I, that we look at today, that we admire today, that were started from a valley. You know what the valley is? Even though I walk in the valley of darkness, that's what David said. There are businesses that started in a time of darkness, right? It's because sometimes when you are walking in light, you don't want to start a business. So God, in His wisdom, sometimes He can wait, right? He can wait to capitalize on a situation. I'm not saying that He brings the situation, but I'm saying that He can find an opportunity, right, to make you to produce a product or a service that will not only pay your debts, but that will change your life. Hey, how's it, guys? Welcome back to part 2 of our video, where we are looking at how to eliminate debt using God's way, right? I've been receiving comments, because many people have been struggling with this monster, right? Remember what I shared in the previous video, that there is a debt that can be avoided, there is a debt that needs to be eliminated, right? And I told you that money is a beast, but debt is a monster, right? So remember, guys, no matter how deep it is, no matter how big it is, God can solve it, right? It's one of those things where we gotta surrender, our wisdom, we gotta surrender our cleverness, our ability to be smart, and allow God to use His wisdom to solve, our cases. And I've already shared with you the 2 ways that God uses to deal with your debts, right? The first one is that your debt can be forgiven. Your debt can be cancelled. And when you read the book of Philemon, right, you saw that Onesimus was owing Philemon money, right? But Onesimus, when he was owing Philemon money, he was still a slave. But when he became a believer, right, he was qualified, for his debt to be forgiven, right? Or another way, when you become a believer, it means there is a requirement for you to learn how to eliminate your debt. You see, we can look at it from both ways. Number one, you can qualify for debt cancellation, or number two, you are then required, to deal with your debt. That's why at times Paul will tell the church, a command that you gotta pay your debt. I think it's somewhere in the Bible. I don't know where it is, but I remember reading it one day where it said, pay your debt. Pay your debt, right? But you gotta use God's way to pay your debt. So the first one, your debt can be forgiven, or number two, you can have a bailout. But for you to be qualified for these two things, remember, guys, don't accumulate debts with more debt. Remember the example I shared with you, that when there is a problem, make sure that you isolate the problem. Make sure that you put a danger tape, because the situation is dangerous, so that nobody will walk into it. So communicate with the people that you owe money, but make sure that you don't solve a debt problem with another debt, because now you're going to compound a problem that makes you not to feel, good or comfortable, right? I want to show you the third way that God uses to eliminate your debts. In fact, this way is one of my favorites because it requires you to take action. The other two is dependent on other people, right? Because if you owe me money, God can move in my heart and I can forgive you, which means I can cancel your debt. And then the number two, God can move in another person's heart. Then they can pay for you whoever you are owing, like how we saw in the case of Paul and Philemon when Onesimus was owing money. But the third way is when you have to take action, right? So the reason why I'm showing you these three ways, these are the three ways that God has showed us in the Bible, right? If there's another way that God has showed us in the Bible, then please let me know. Go hit the comments, tell us what has been your experience. But what I'm gonna share in this video, it's actually one of the best ways that God uses for most people to eliminate their debts, right? So I'm gonna read the scripture, right, or a passage of scripture that is found in 2 Kings chapter 4, right? 2 Kings chapter 4, right? 2 Kings chapter 4, right? So 2 Kings chapter 4, I'm going to read from verse 1 to verse 7. In fact, these 7 verses, they carry such a very powerful message on how not only to deal with your debts, but to turn around your financial situation, right? So I'm reading from an NLT version, 2 Kings chapter 4, verse 1. One day, the widow of a member of the group of prophets came to Elisha and cried out, "My husband who saved you is dead." Right? I want you to catch that. The husband is dead. And you know how he feared the Lord. But now a creditor has come, threatening to take my 2 sons as slaves. Right? So we are seeing a picture of a lady, right, who was married, but now she's a widow. I wanna show you how severe the situation was that she was facing, right? Because remember, guys, it doesn't matter how deep it is, it doesn't matter how big is it, God will solve it, right? So this lady, right, he was dealing with the fact that she was a widow, right? So this lady was mourning, the loss of her husband. That's the first problem that she was experiencing in her life. And then number 2, she had the responsibility of raising 2 sons. Right? 2 sons. 2 sons. This is crazy. So this lady was a widow and she had the responsibility of raising 2 sons on her own. Right? And then the last part, we are seeing that they were in debt. Right? So I'm reading from 2 Kings. 2 Kings chapter 4, verse 1 to 7. So they were in debt. How do I know that they were in debt? Because she was crying before God, right? That the creditors are coming to take her sons to be slaves, right? So can you imagine being in a situation where you owe people money, or you owe a bank or whoever that you owe money, and those people are sending you messages that they are coming maybe to take your house, maybe to take your car, maybe to take your kids, right? So this was a very, very stressful situation. Very stressful, right? It was a very, very hard. This was hard. It's one of those things when you read the Bible, yes, you will find motivation, but you'll be like, I thank God I was not the person who was going through that experience. Because for us, guys, at least we have a template. We already know how to handle it. But these guys were the characters in the story. So this situation was very severe to them. You see, any situation that you face, if it's in the Bible and you are going through it, you're not going to feel, how severe it is as compared to the guys who were the characters of the story. So make peace with that. Right? So now this situation was hard. It was very hard because this lady had to deal with these three things. She was a widow, she had to deal with loneliness, she had to deal with the responsibility of raising two sons, and number three, her husband. The only thing he left her was debt. Right? So when you read verse number 2, Elisha now, he's replying. So Elisha is a representative of God, right? So we will look at Elisha as how God is speaking, because Elisha was the prophet, right, of God. So Elisha replies, how can I do to help you? Can you imagine coming to God with a very huge or with a very hard situation, and the first thing that God says to you, how can I help you? What does that mean? It means every situation that makes you and I not to sleep at night, God cares about those situations. Not only that he cares about those situations, but he cares about us. He really, really wants to help us. Maybe it's about time we stop looking, at people to help us. Maybe it's about time where we look to God, because in this situation, it's only God who can help you. Why? Because you need God to deal with your debts, but you also need God to deal with your soul. Right? This lady, she was going through a lot, both her soul, and also she needed somebody who's gonna remove the weight on her shoulders. Right? So Elisha says, what can I do to help you? Tell me, what do you have in the house? Isn't that wonderful? Right? That no matter how broken we think we are, no matter how depressed we think we are, there is still something in us that God can use to turn around our financial situation. Maybe you are watching this video. Okay, let me just read the following before I say anything. This lady, now she's replying. She says, I have nothing except a flask of olive oil. Right? So what this lady is saying is that I have nothing. She is being honest before God that I have nothing except a small jar of oil. Right? And this is so encouraging when you read this story, that no matter how bad the situation looks like, there is something that we have. It may look insignificant, but there is something that we have that God can use to turn around our financial situation. You see, this reminds me of a story of Moses when he was facing the Red Sea. He was very frustrated because he was looking at the sea, and he was looking at the crowd, and he was looking at the Egyptians. But when he spoke to God, God asked him a question, what is in your hand? Right? So I can imagine God asking this lady that, yeah, you gave me a good answer that you have something. You see, it's so amazing that the things that we think as insignificant, God can use those things to provide the miracle. Right? So this lady says, the only thing I have is it's a small jar of oil. Right? Which means the small jar of oil is what is left of me. So if you can remove this small jar of oil, then I'm doomed. Right? But what is more nicer is that God, he is reminding this lady that I can perform a miracle, I can remove mountains, I can do the impossible just by using the small thing that you have. So remember, you gotta be honest before God, and you gotta allow him to use that thing that looks insignificant to you, so that you can come out of that situation. Right? So verse 3, it says, then Elisha says, borrow as many empty jars as you can from your friends and neighbors. Then go into your house with your sons and shut the door behind you. Pour that olive oil, that small oil that you have, from your flask into the jars, setting each one side when it is filled. Right? So she did as she was told. Her sons kept bringing jars to her, and she filled one after another. Verse 6, soon every container was full to the brim, and she said, "Bring me another jar," she said to one of her sons, and her sons told her that there is no more jars. Then the olive oil stopped flowing. Right. So to summarize the passage that I was reading, this lady came before God, right? She was in debt. She had the responsibility of raising 2 sons, and she was a widow. And God looked at her, right, and saw something valuable, right? God saw something valuable in her, right? So if God can see something valuable in her, that means he can see also something that is valuable in me and also in you. You see, there is something that is valuable in you that God can see. But let me tell you what is the problem you and I sometimes are facing. That thing is, it looks small and it looks insignificant. Insignificant. Yeah. So maybe you are watching this video and maybe God has been telling you that I want you, there's something that I'm seeing in you. It's very small, it is insignificant. And number two, we see that this lady was directed. She was guided, right? She was guided to build a product that she could sell. Isn't it crazy? Right? So God saw something that was insignificant, right, in this lady. In fact, this lady said, "This is what I have." Right? And God saw value in that thing that was insignificant, right? And then God provided guidance to this lady in terms of what products she must build or what service she must offer, right? To some, it can be a product, or to some, it could be a service. To some, it could be a product, and to some, it could be a service. Let me tell you something. I'm going to say a shocking statement. And when you hear this statement, you will be shocked. Right? Are you ready for it? Are you ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Some businesses will start from a place of depression. You see, maybe there's somebody who's watching this video and maybe God has been telling you that start this business, right? Build this product, build this service, but you were not motivated to do it. And God knew that, you know what, when a situation came, he then got a chance to capitalize so that he can motivate you to start your business. There are companies, you and I, that we look at today, that we admire today, that were started from a valley. You know what the valley is? Even though I walk in the valley of darkness, that's what David said. There are businesses that started in a time of darkness, right? It's because sometimes when you are walking in light, you don't want to start a business. So God, in his wisdom, sometimes he can wait, right? He can wait to capitalize on a situation. I'm not saying that he brings the situation, but I'm saying that he can find an opportunity, right, to make you to produce a product or a service that will not only pay your debts, but that will change your life. You see? So sometimes you wouldn't know that you're an entrepreneur. You see, there are people who are watching these videos or who are watching this video, they'll be like, "But Tim, I'm not an entrepreneur." Yeah, wait until you face a situation where you are left alone, where you have a responsibility of raising kids, where you have a responsibility of paying your debts, that's when you will realize how valuable you are. You see, some people will not see their value until they are brought into a lowest moment. You see, so a lowest moment in your life can also be a motivating moment, or it can be a moment of your turnaround. Only if you can allow God to guide you. You see, this lady had nothing. This lady said, I have nothing. The only thing that I have, it's the small jar of oil. Right? So can I ask you a question right now? What is it that you have in your life? What is it that you have in your house? That you know very well, when you look at it, you find hope. You see, sometimes God doesn't have to tell you what it is. But when you enter your house, you can see that, you know what? This is what I can do to actually change my life. You see, a house cannot be a house literally, but it can be your body. It can be yourself. You are the house. Remember, your life is your house. So stop looking outside yourself for redemption. You see, that's why it's very important to get guidance. And that's the motive for me to share this video. Because I remember I was in this point at some moment in my life. You see, and I had to be guided. You know, when you're guided, sometimes people will think you are going through a lot. Some people will think that the situation has isolated you. Do you know that God can capitalize on your isolation so that He can guide you, so that you can build a best-selling product or a best-selling service, right? It's not all people who have isolated themselves who are going through depression. When you read this portion of scripture, Elisha said, take this, shut the door, and make sure that you are working, you and your son. So there are people who have isolated themselves from us, not only because they are going through depression, but because they are manufacturing products and services, right? Maybe when it's about time for you to do what God wants you to do, you will stop telling people about what you are doing, but you will shut the door and do it in private. You don't owe anyone to tell them about what you are doing. You don't owe anyone to tell them about what you are doing, right? And I want to read the last part, right, which is verse number 7. When she told the man of God what had happened, he said to her, now sell the olive oil, right, and pay your debt, and you and your sons can live on what is left over, right? So what we are seeing here is that this business that this woman started at this point of her life, actually it was good enough for her to pay off her debts. It was good enough for her to raise her sons. You know, the Bible doesn't tell us what happened to her. Maybe she got remarried. I don't know. Right? But the Bible doesn't tell us. The very same business that was born out of depression, that was born out of frustration, it became a provision that was able to pay off debts and also to bless her, to live a good life, her and also with the sons, right? Maybe the two sons became, managers in that company. We don't know. Maybe a situation in your family that you are facing can motivate a family to start a family business, right? But I want to highlight the last point because that point is very important. Elisha says to her, after you've created a product or a service, go and sell. Right? I want to talk about sales for 1 minute. Right? Because most people, they think sales is a worldly thing. Sales is not a worldly thing. Sales is a divine thing. Right? Sales is something that comes directly from God. So Elisha, verse 7, it says, go and sell. Go and sell. Right? Go and sell. So how do you sell? First, in order for you to sell, you gotta understand what is sales. Sales, somebody once said, sales is a process of it's the process of revealing the value of what you are having, and in return, people will pay you for it. You see, sales is not trying to make people to buy, but sales it's making people to see the value of what you carry. When people see the value of what you carry, they wouldn't mind to give you money, right? So sales, it means, I love the word go and sell. What does it mean? It means you must step out of your comfort zone. Step out, right? Stop having fear. Stop having fear, right? And don't worry about rejection. Right? 1, 2, 3. Step out or come out. So maybe you are watching this video, you have a product, you have a service, but you're afraid to come out. I'm telling you, go and sell. You gotta come out. You see, guys, you don't know how hard it is to make videos for YouTube. Because sometimes you'll meditate on a video and you'll be like, would people watch this video? What if I say a wrong thing? What if I say this? What if they don't like it? What if they criticize me? What if they judge me? What if they say bad things about me? You see, those things, that's internal communication, will make you not to do anything, right? And the best way for you to deal with that, the best way I deal with those questions, I always turn the camera on, because I become better at recording content the minute I turn the camera on. But when I meditate on a concept, sometimes I can stay the whole week and not record content because I'm afraid. You see, fear can happen to anybody, and fear can come at any time. The key, you gotta find a way. You see, you gotta find a way that the only way for you to deal with fear of not wanting to sell is that you gotta do the thing that you're afraid to do, right? If you can start to do the thing that you are afraid to do, you become better at the thing, right? So number 2, you gotta stop having fear. The fear of not wanting to sell, right? There's a scripture in Proverbs chapter 11 verse 26. It says, people curse those who do not want to give their product, and people bless those who sell their product. That's what it reads. Proverbs 11 verse 26. People curse those who do not want to sell, but to those who sell, blessing will be upon their head. Let me tell you something. There are people who are watching this video. They have a business, they have a product, they have a service, but they are afraid to sell because they fear rejection. I'm telling you, no matter what you are selling, no matter how good your product is, there will be people who will reject you. You see, you cannot run away from rejection. There are people who are watching my videos and they'll be like, this guy is crazy. You see, this guy is mad. This guy is blah, 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 blah. You see, it's okay if they think like that. But what I know is that Jesus says, my sheep, they know my voice. What does that mean? It means the people who are supposed to watch my videos, they will find my videos and I will give them the impact that I want to give them, and I'll be able to sell my coaching programs to them. So I'm not concerned about the person who is not willing to buy my coaching programs, because the person who is not willing to buy from me is not my client. My sheep will hear my voice. You see, Jesus says, nobody comes to me unless you are made by the Father. So what does that mean? It means a person who is not your client will never be your client. You see, there's nothing you can do for you to turn a person to become your client. The only thing that I do, I wake up every day and I schedule my recording time. You see, I schedule when I'm going to record content. Right? But I have no control of the impact that it's going to give to people. But what I know is that content creation is like a magnet, right? So the people who really need my message, they will start to be attracted to my content. You see, that's what you gotta understand when it comes to sales. Don't control the client. There is nothing you can do to control the client. But the only thing that you must be worried about is to reveal the value, is to reveal the glory, is to reveal the benefits, right, of what you are selling. Start communicating that on a consistent base. You will start to attract people who truly need your product. And I am telling you, there are more people who are waiting to buy for your product than people who will reject your product. You see? And when people reject you, you gotta understand that there's another service provider who are meant to serve them. You can't serve everybody. You are designed to serve few people. So don't cry over a lost customer, because the customer that you lose was never your own to begin with, right? So guys, that is the third way that God uses to eliminate debt in our lives. Don't be afraid to sell. I am telling you, Jesus says, my sheep, they know my voice. What does that mean? It means the minute I go out in the marketplace and start to shout about my product and start to shout about my service, those who truly are my clients, they will start to come to me, right? Nobody comes to Jesus except being made by the Father. So what does that mean? It means as a service provider, no client will come to me unless they are touched by God, right? So I must not focus on, I remember I was praying, I don't know when, right? And the prayer I remember that I made was, God, please make me to produce the content that is needed by those people who are waiting for me. You see, I always pray for a change in me, because I know that if there's a change, if I'm positioned in a way that when my client sees this video, they will respond in a way that's going to be beneficial for both of us. Number one, I'm going to give them my product, but number two, I'll be able to be rewarded in the process. And that's what sales it's all about. You see? So guys, I'm sure you're inspired, and please start applying what I've been sharing in this video. You see, I can feel the heat, because most of us are stuck in sales. We don't want to sell because we are afraid. We don't want to sell because we fear rejection. We don't want to sell because sales will make you to look like a fool, right? It's okay to look like a fool, but I'm telling you, at the end, your business will pop, your service will pop, and people will come back to you for advice, because people are like this. They always criticize those who are trying, but when they arrive where they are going, the others will come and say, teach us, how did you do it, right? So the people who are criticizing you right now, trust me, they're gonna come later to ask for your help. So don't be, stop looking at other people. You gotta shut your ears and start focusing on what you are doing. So thank you so much guys for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Please don't forget to hit the comments, because guys, I am telling you, you gotta revolutionize your life by understanding sales, right? So thank you so much guys, and I will see you in the next video.